Hello, welcome back. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony Astrology here to do the astrology for the month of June. You can see here I've got the list of the big aspects happening this month. It's pretty long, so we're going to take it piece by piece, just go over one thing at a time. First thing I want to highlight for this month, well, notice on June 1st, so right after this full moon, we're having this full moon in Sagittarius. It's this real moon associated with motion, movement, and that is the blue moon. It's the second full moon in May. So we'll be coming off the heels of that as we enter June. And right on the heels of that, June 1st, Mercury will enter Cancer. So usually when Mercury's going through a sign, it's in there pretty quickly, like a few weeks, and it's out. But when it starts to slow down, retrograde, etc., that's when it slows down pretty good. So from June 1st to August 9th, in fact, so about 9 or 10 weeks, Mercury is going to be in Cancer. If you remember back a few months ago, Mercury was also in Pisces for an extended period of time from about mid-February to mid April. Okay, and that's because we had the Mercury retrograde in Pisces in March, for most of March. In this case, Mercury is going to enter the shadow. So it's going to enter the zone of the zodiac, the degrees that it will retrograde over. So when it enters 16 degrees Cancer, it's in the shadow because it will actually go up to 26 degrees Cancer when it turns retrograde on June 29th. So the month of June pretty much is leading up to this Mercury retrograde with the entrance of Mercury into Cancer, where it will do the entirety of the retrograde right when the month starts. Okay, so that will be a background theme that is building. And it's interesting that Mercury's had quite a relationship with Jupiter lately. And you see Jupiter is going to enter Leo on the same day, actually, that Mercury turns retrograde in Cancer. So Mercury's moving through Cancer and it's not going to get to Jupiter. It's going to get close. Then it turns retrograde, Jupiter enters Leo, and so they don't really touch. And that's interesting because if we look back at the last Mercury retrograde, when that was halfway through it, during the inferior conjunction, when Mercury backed up and then joined the Sun, that happened just a few days before Jupiter turned direct in Cancer on March 10th. Okay, so there's something related to that retrograde and Jupiter. In addition, this entire zone of 16 degrees to 26 degrees Cancer, this is the same zone essentially that Jupiter did its retrograde back from mid-November to about mid-March. Okay, so that was, I believe, from 25 degrees Cancer back to 15 degrees. In this case, we're 26 to 16, so it's off by 1 degree, but it's essentially the same zone. So if you have any planets or placements that are aspecting that part of Cancer, whatever Jupiter was aspecting during its retrograde, November to March, this Mercury retrograde is going to do the same thing. Okay, so that's interesting in itself. So I feel like there's a strong relationship between Mercury and Jupiter happening as we speak, and we're going to see that as what happens here, what unfolds here, especially when we get into July with the retrograde itself, how that goes back to the Jupiter retrograde mid-November to mid-March, and what was developing there, and where do we find ourselves now? Okay, so in Cancer in general, this retrograde in Cancer, it's going to be a very emotional energy. So it's about introspecting on our emotions, what we feel about things. And so again, think of how that will relate to Jupiter in Cancer, which again, Jupiter is about to exit Cancer here, enter Leo at the end of the month. So it's finishing up, it's expanded some things, and now we're kind of reviewing essentially with Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Kind of like Mercury when it retrograded in Pisces in late February into mid-March, that was a time of, right after both Saturn and Neptune entered Aries. So they were both in Pisces for a long time. And so Mercury is acting like this cleanup act. Okay. And in this case, Jupiter's expanded some things, and now Mercury is just going to come in there and do some review for, just as Jupiter's about to exit Cancer and enter Leo. Next thing we have, very interesting. So depending on if you use the true nodes or the mean nodes, that's what the T and the M mean here. So the nodes of the moon, there's different schools of thought as far as which ones to follow, but they're always close together. So that's why this aspect is happening in both cases throughout the month of June. So if you're using the true nodes, Uranus in Gemini is going to square the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo from June 2nd to the 17th. If you use the mean nodes, it's June 10th to the 29th. Either way, the entire month of June essentially has this theme of Uranus in Gemini squaring the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. And so Uranus and Gemini being about surprise information, surprise development, surprise change. Okay. We're being asked to just kind of go with the flow. That's the North Node in Pisces, go with our intuition. We're building up to that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which is going to be about getting back into our fields, etc. But in this case, whatever surprises happen, whatever surprising information happens, in our best interest to not worry about the details so much and not worry about having to control things so much. Just go with it. Let our intuition lead, because the changes that happen here in June are in our favor. We got to trust that. Okay. So that's really what that North Node in Pisces is saying, is we've got to trust that whatever changes come in, whatever information comes in, that changes things, that we can just ride with it. Okay, that's really what this comes down to. So that could be a jolting experience if we're not into change. If you don't have a lot of mutable energy in your chart, for example, and change is tough for you, this can be a little rattling this month. If you like change, if you like to mix things up a bit, this is your month. Okay, so things mixing up just in time for that retrograde Mercury in Cancer. Next on the list, we got the new moon in Gemini. That'll be mid-June, June 14th. Okay, so we'll take a look at that as well. So there it is. There's your sun, moon, about 24 degrees Gemini. It is forming a sextile to Chiron in Aries, which we'll see back on that list is about to enter Taurus here this month as well. In addition, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, and that is in Cancer, just inside of the shadow period. So it entered the shadow a couple days before this on the 12th. And then this will be on the 14th for the new moon. And so the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, is sextiling Mars in Taurus. Okay, so where Gemini energy can be a little flighty and fast and fast-paced motion and that kind of thing, what this suggests with that ruling planet being in Cancer, Mercury's slowing down, it's about to retrograde, and it's forming a sextile to Mars in Taurus, which is stable movement. Okay, so it really has a stabilization factor on this, what otherwise a new moon in Gemini can, like I said, can be. So this is going to hold it in place a little bit more, a little more directed. Okay, so what is opening up here in June has a way to land. Okay, that's the way to look at it. It's not just going to be something coming in and then leaving just as fast. It's something that can come in and change things, but it's steady motion forward. It's steady implementation. So it's a gradual process. Okay, and there is a bit of self-trust in this new moon as well. So whatever is changing, whatever we are starting up, it's about facing those wounds that we've been facing since 2018 when Chiron entered Aries. So we're finishing that up here. And so it is about these wounds of capability, these wounds of self-reliance, all right? So this new moon is giving us an opportunity to address those wounds with some healing. And so this gradual implementation of what comes forth can help build our confidence, our self-confidence in our capability, okay? So something new is going to be birthing here, and it's going to have a grounding place to sit, which can be a good thing. So now next on our list, I'm going to talk about these two planetary bodies exiting their signs and entering new ones. So Chiron's going to enter Taurus on June 19th, and it will actually only be there for about a few months. In September, it's going to back into Aries, and it'll be in Aries until April. It's really April 2027 that Chiron enters Taurus completely, where it'll be for 7 years or so beyond that. But we're going to get a little preview of this Chiron in Taurus. And what will be nice is that we're going to have Chiron out of Aries. Yeah, since 2018, Chiron's been in Aries, and that wound of capability, that wound of self-reliance, we're going to get a break. So in a sense, it's like we finished up, we've completed some of the healing we've had to do, and now a new stage of healing enters. And this is going to be more about our worth, okay? Self-worth, what we earn, how we spend, those kind of things. Also, wounds associated with rest. Okay, do we allow ourselves to rest? Do we allow ourselves to do we take care of ourselves? Do we pamper ourselves? That's going to be brought up here with Chiron and Taurus. This idea of for a workaholic, Chiron and Taurus is going to remind us that we need rest. Okay. Anyway, also we have Jupiter entering Leo. Jupiter is very expansive. Leo is very expressive. So we have this expanded expression that's coming on the table here. And so Jupiter's going to enter Leo. It's going to fly through Leo into December. It's almost going to be the end of it when it turns retrograde in December. And then it'll still be, when it retrogrades, it'll turn direct again in spring. So it's going to be in Leo for about a year or so. That's typically how long Jupiter will be in a sign. So wherever Leo is in your chart, expect that expansion. Expect more of a sense of expressiveness. So there's a boldness to and a courage associated with this. So again, Jupiter is finishing in Cancer, and this last year has been a lot about that self-nurturing, a lot about expanding our emotional healing and that kind of thing. And now we're at a place we want to expand what we express or how we express ourselves and whatnot. Okay, so that is also happening this month. So lots of stuff going on here. Then we have the sun entering Cancer on the 21st. That's going to happen every year. It's the solstice. We don't have to get too much into it. Obviously, it's significant. We have Stonehenge and other monuments built just for the purpose of capturing the solstice sunlight, etc. So obviously, very symbolic, very significant. And it is, the brightest time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. And then it starts getting darker after that. So that is coming up this month. Then we have the full moon in Capricorn. That'll be happening at the end of the month on the same day, on the 29th, same day that Mercury turns retrograde at 26 degrees Cancer and that Jupiter enters Leo. Okay, so that's going to be a busy day. And that Capricorn full moon is very interesting. So there's a sun in Cancer, moon in Capricorn, about 8 degrees. And notice how they're both squaring Saturn and Neptune. So it's, again, Saturn made that conjunction to Neptune in February of this year. That's a new, opens up like a new paradigm essentially in the world and in structures, and it's bringing that sense of personal responsibility for our spiritual intentions in this life. That's being highlighted, and so this full moon is basically reminding us of that, saying, "Hey, it's really like this, like." It's reminding us that this is the time to lock in. It's really the key phrase that I'm getting is lock in. Okay, so what is our intentions? Let's take responsibility for that. Lock it in. So we're it's like time for business. Like we mean business at this point. So at the end of the month, right as Jupiter's entering Leo, Mercury's turning retrograde. It's like we know who we are, and there's a sense of like, okay, we've got to do what we came here to do. So there is really this lock-in energy, and the year of the fire horse is moving. This full moon that we're coming off here at the end of May, that's again all about movement. So it's really stimulating that fire horse energy, and so this full moon is like locking in who we are, what we came here to do, and taking responsibility for that, so that we can move forward from there. So that about sums it up. So again, we got the Mercury entering Cancer, where it'll be for about 10 weeks. It's going to enter the shadow zone and then eventually turn retrograde here. At the end of the month, Uranus is squaring the nodes from Gemini all month. Again, focus on going with the flow, intuition, etc. We got Chiron entering Taurus, Jupiter entering Leo. So some new shifts and changes in terms of our wounds and healing, and as far as our expansiveness goes. Okay, and then we've got that new moon in Gemini, which opens up some doors, but it's gonna be grounded. And in that full moon in Capricorn, it says lock in. This is a time. So in summary, it's following that intuitive direction. We're shifting our wounds from that Aries zone to Taurus, and expanded expression with Jupiter entering Leo. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Comment below if you have any thoughts. Otherwise, you can catch me on the Hill weekly for my updates. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I post semi-daily, a few times a week. If you want more of a verbal expression of, a written expression of what is going on. Otherwise, if you're looking for a personal reading, I do those as well. You can contact me anytime. Enjoy your month of June. It looks like it's going to be some shifts and changes happening. And so just go with it, lock it in, and we could be in a whole new world as we move toward the second half of 2026. So with that, take care, and we'll talk to you again.